jobs in Houston, is assistant conductor of the Houston Brass Band, and a good friend of mine. We will get, please ignore the taps thing at the top. This is the ATSSB trombone, and online we'll get one that says ATSSB. The handout and this clinic will both be put online on the ATSSB website. So, Dr. Spitz.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, everybody. I encourage you to ask me questions at any time. What I'm going to do is start with a slow etude, and I'll work on that for maybe 10 minutes or so, and then I'll go to the other etude. If I talk too fast, or if I don't finish a sentence and you want to hear what that was supposed to be, let me know. There's a couple little typos on this as well besides the title. On number 7, it's a measure off. On the first page it should say measure 15 and 17, and then on number 8 it should say measure 19. I got off there a little bit. Anyway, so this is the slow legato etude by Geppo, A major, and tempo range is 48 to 56. I like to take it about 52 for the dotted quarter. It's marked andante affettuoso. So, anybody know? Walking speed affectionately. Okay? So, walking, comfortable speed, but affectionate, affettuoso. This is obviously designed to show your tone and air support. So let me play it for you first, and then we'll go back and discuss it. We have a lot of decisions to make in this musically. First of all, and a good way of getting your air support to work on a legato etude is to play your etudes down an octave. Have any of you been in the practice of doing that? Trying your etudes down? It's really a helpful thing. It helps you focus your sound. If you have time, I'll do a little bit of that at the end. What I did is mark phrase marks in this that are suggestions. You can always change those. Basically, I also mark with little asterisks the notes that are priority notes. And if you were trying to discern among all the moving notes, what are the most important, you go by duration. In other words, the 16ths are the least important, the eighth notes more important, quarter notes more important, dotted quarters, etc. So, if I'm playing that first phrase, so we have those points of arrival. Okay. There's the ornament in measure 5, and I assume those are optional, but what I did is just play an eighth note followed by 4/16. So I'm going to play the C sharp, and then add. And what you want to do is make sure that they're light and unobtrusive so that the tone is not interrupted. So you hear the C sharp, the first C sharp is the strongest, and then the E is strong, and then those other notes are just nice and legato in between. Another challenge on this are the jumps all over the place, even in the very first measure. make sure you let the air sustain. I think of it as a little bit of a crescendo to keep the note alive, to build right up into the next note. Now, you see in measure 8 and measure 9, there's those staccato marks, but there's a slur over them. As wind players, we're not used to seeing that. That's a string marking, a slurred staccatos. That would be going the bow in the same direction, up, up, up. But what we have to do as performers is interpret that. And what I say is they're nice long notes with just the slightest bit of separation. A lot of folks, when they see anything staccato, they think heavy. The same thing where it has dolce in measure 16. We have. So really take it easy on the articulation there. We want to think of them as a mark of separation rather than heavy articulation. So we're just giving a little bit of distinction. All right. I used a few alternate positions on this measure 15 and 17. We have the B, C sharp, and B. So it's going to be a flat 5 in the case to play that C sharp with D flat. Any questions so far? Go ahead and stop me with yeah.
In measure 5, what does that little symbol mean?
It's an ornament, and that's what I'm saying. You add 4 notes. You're going to make it into an 8th note, followed by 4 16ths. So instead of you go above it and below it and back to it. But it's something that if it's too confusing or difficult, you can leave it out and the piece flies just as well. So that's an ornament term. All right. So we're using those alternate positions on the C sharp in measure 15 to 17, and then also in measure 8, you see all those accidentals: G sharp, F sharp, D sharp, C sharp, or for goodness sake, G sharp. What am I trying to do? It's just an A flat 7 chord. It's an A flat chord. If you think flats, sometimes it's a little bit easier. So. So I wrote in there A flat. It's actually G sharp if you want to talk about the theory to be technically correct, but that's might be a way to think of it and a little more helpful. Okay, other thing is you measure 10 through 12. What I did was build each time. You have that same thing stated. But you could echo that just as well. In fact, I don't recall which way I did it because I've practiced both ways. It's a musical decision that you can make because it's not indicated in the part, but it definitely needs to change somehow. You don't want to play the same thing exactly the same 3 times in a row. It's not very musical that way. Okay, we also have sforzandi indicated, the SFs. What do those mean? Again, it's a musical decision. In my opinion, in this case, it just means a nice, strong sound, but again, not a heavy articulation. So we have. We don't want an explosion on it, okay? So just as much sound with as moderate amount of tongue as you can. And throughout that section, we have that same thing. Connect. In accidentals on this piece, you really want to lean into them. Especially, for example, in measure 16, you have the E sharp to the F sharp, which occurs again in measure 18. Measure 18. So any accidental, I consider, if you're thinking in terms of video games, it's bonus points. You get twice as many points for the same amount of effort. Okay, it's something to look forward to, something you don't want to go by without grabbing it. Okay? So, any questions on this legato etude? Any other ones? Comments? Okay, let's move ahead. Oh, let's see. Let me play a little bit down and up for you, just so you get an idea. It really takes a lot of air. You may need to change your breathing points, but again, this is an exercise. And it looks a lot more complicated than it is. What I did is I distilled it and gave you the chords in root position. If you look on page 5 of the handout, this is the same etude, but what I did is put the root in the bottom of the chord. We all know that chords have 3 voices at least, well, oftentimes 1, 3, 5, and this is a bunch of arpeggios. So what I did is just distill it out to each one, and then I showed you what it means to do inversions, and I'll play those for you in a minute. Let me play the etude first. Get this close to 92. So that was all done single tongue. If you play this up at 96, you may want to get into the double tongue range because those long runs get to be pretty hairy at that speed. But some people have really fast single tongues, it's no problem. Okay, so let's look at this chord structure that I printed out here for you. And just look at the first measure. Only it starts in the piece on the third of the chord, not on the fifth. So we have, we're actually on the fifth and then the third. So what I'm trying to do is point to you that if you play these in root position, you're going to start to hear the change in the tonalities. Okay? In other words, the chord progression you can anticipate. you look at the bottom of the page, then it shows you what it means to invert a chord. I know your teachers know this, but I printed this out just so some of you could do it on your own if you're not aware of what inversions are. So if you take a B flat major chord right there and play it in root position, it means the one's on the bottom. And then you flip the low note up on top and it becomes first inversion. Or then you put the next note, you flip that up and then you have the fifth on the bottom. So it's really a good thing to do to practice arpeggios, because when you get up a piece like this, your mind says, hey, I got this. I play arpeggios all the time. And some of your scale exercises have those at the end, I'm sure. And so for an F7 chord, I have all three inverted. And then back to root position up an octave. Okay? All right. Let's see what else on this one. Questions? Okay, so alternate positions are a big deal on this piece, or can be quite helpful. What I did is here on page 7, some of you probably have had this in your private lessons, maybe some of you have not, but I put the actual temperaments and tuning chart at the very bottom to explain why we have to alter our positions, and we use alternate positions. We use the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th partials in this piece. And if you also look on the left-hand side, it says harmonic series. This is out of the Hunsberger text. It shows the partial, the position numbers are cut off, but it's obviously 1 through 7 on the left-hand column there. And then the partials are listed above. So if you look at 5th position, you're playing B flat, that's going to have to be raised, because if you look down here at the bottom of the chart, a natural harmonic would be 275, but we need it at 277 to play in our equal temperament. So in other words, you're going to raise your slide position. If you look the page before that, I have this Sybil Remington study, 5-note slur. It's on page 6. So if you're going to play that study, we get to the 5th position. When you're in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd position, there's very small alterations. As you progress past 1st position, you're going to alter your slide position more and more. So if I'm in 5th position, the B flat has to be raised and the D flat has to be lowered. Nod your head, you're aware of this. Good. All right, so on this piece, we have lots of opportunity to make our lives a little bit easier. Probably the most pronounced is the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. So we start with the 6th position B, 5th position B flat and measure 40. Actually, the F is in 6th, then the 5th position B flat. So that really makes it a lot easier. And then on the last measure, we can use the 5th position for D flat and B flat. And even a third trigger 3 for the low B flat. Since it goes by fast, you can get away with it. Because the tone is not quite as good as if you beat first position, right? Okay. What other nuggets of wisdom do we have here? Yeah, a couple trigger notes. If you want to use trigger on the measure 23, the C and the A flat 7 chord. That's kind of handy as well. Then for measure 25, 26, I chose to use alternate positions. Not essential, but it might be fun. Or you can use the sixth position for the C as well. Okay. All right, what else? The marking is allegretto and leggere. What's leggere? Anybody have an idea what that might mean? You got it, say it loud. Leisurely, yeah. It's not rocket science. Italian is the Latin root for a lot of things, okay? So leisurely, and that really speaks to the articulation style. It should really dance light. So nothing heavy or pounding. Pretty tricky practicing measure 13, 14, 15. Just takes a whole lot of work. Particularly, you have to plan well to have any air to make that crescendo. That's a really treacherous lick. It looks innocent, but it's mean. Any questions? I can try and play it a little bit with a double tone. Faster. So, the other one I forgot to mention is measure 32. You can use sixth position for that whole arpeggio. You have a C to F to A to C to F, and all that can be in six. It works well as you come back in third position. I think yes, sir.
On that last measure, the slowing down and kind of deliberately going into that last note, is that a musical choice or is that...
That's my choice. I think it sounds kind of crazy just to slam into it. Daka, 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 da. So that's delivery. As a judge, me sitting there, if someone's made a musical choice and they can play it with conviction, I can tell it wasn't a mistake. I don't have any problem. I don't know what you would say. It's as long as it's by choice and not by chance. That's what my feeling is, especially when it's something that adds musicianship to it. So, anything else? All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Pleasure.